Hey guys, welcome to the new recap. Today I played an international master from Indonesia, a very strong player who has participated in chess Olympiads. And it was a very instructive and fascinating game, and the ending is very unexpected. You will be surprised. So let me show you the game. I'm playing with the white pieces, and while preparing, I noticed that against, for example, the Rui Lopez, the Spanish, he plays practically all setups possible, including ones with a6, with f5, with bishop c5, with bishop e7, with knight f6. And I did not want to prepare all the lines in the Spanish, and I decided I'll surprise him with the Magnus 4 knights. This is the line a3. This is an interesting line that Magnus used to play in Blitz online against Alireza Firouzja, and there I saw it, and it's a nice trappy line. The main line goes d5, bishop b5, and I had a couple of videos in this channel where I analyzed this line for you guys. But my opponent here thought for quite a long period of time. He didn't seem to decide what to do here. Probably didn't know in detail this line because it's very rare, of course. It's mostly a blitz weapon for some players. And he went d6, which is not like the most principled way to go here. And here white is better. White has some advantage. But I think that he didn't go d5 because he was afraid to open up the position and simplify, because he's an IM. I'm just a 2000 rated player. He probably wants to play for a win, so he wants to keep the position closed, long battle, outplay me, outmaneuver me, outnumber me, and outgun me. That's what he wants. And I am all for it. I want to fight as well. I don't want to make a quick draw. So I go d4, which is logical. I remember that this is the way you should play, and this position is better for white, I remembered, if he takes. But he here also thought for some time, and instead of taking, went bishop g4, and this already was not in my files. Well, because it's not a heavily theoretically developed line, and I realized that it's a good move. He is putting pressure on this diagonal, wanting to utilize the pin of my knight. So here he is threatening to take by pawn or by knight, so I have to do something about it, and I decided to take. He has to take back. Now I take him with check. He takes with the rook, and I play bishop b5. So he pins me, I pin him, but now he's not even pinning me because my knight is free to roam the board, and his knight is pinned, and I'm threatening to take this pawn. And the a3 move here is very useful, I thought, because he cannot do the same. He cannot pin me and threaten my e4 pawn. So I thought, okay, I should be probably a little bit better. If he takes here, I'll take here, and we'll both have doubled pawns, but his doubled pawns will be just doubled without any protection. And my doubled pawns will be close to my e pawn, so they will not feel as lonely. And I thought that some positional advantage I have. Here he finds the best move according to the engine, 97. Rotating the knight, he is strengthening the defense of this pawn, and also there's no longer a pin, so his knight will be free to go. Here I find also a good move, knight d5, using the fact that this knight no longer defends the d5 square, and now I'm attacking this pawn, and it's a little bit unclear for black. All these pieces are not very useful for protecting this pawn. So he has to go bishop d6 to protect this pawn. And now I calculated before going knight d5 that I will go here, here, and here. And I really liked my plan. So this knight is jumping here and now here. And it's attacking this pawn, a very unusual square for the knight, dare I say, but this pawn now is also not easy to protect, so he has to do something. He first trades the bishop for the knight, spoiling my pawn structure. Now again, as I said, my pawns are doubled, his pawns are doubled, but his pawns are like a little bit more vulnerable in future, in my opinion. And the engine agrees, actually, approves of my plan. It says that white has some advantage, plus 0.5. So now his pawn is hanging. Going back with the knight to defend it is not a good idea. Knight should not be on the rim, so he goes c5. And here I was choosing between knight c6 and knight d5. I went knight d5, but turns out the engine even prefers this. This is very bold. The rook is attacked and the pawn is attacked. The rook has to go to a8. I thought maybe I should go here, but I decided, what if he like catches my knight somehow? Turns out there's nothing dangerous about it. I go bishop d2, and in any way I can escape via a5. But I thought, for some time I thought against it, and I went to d5. Also very logical, natural move. I want to rotate and put my knight on c4, which will be an outpost, because there is no, for example, let's make some meaningless moves. There is no black pawn on b, on the b file and on the d file to attack this knight, and it's protected and very well placed here. It's called an outpost. So okay, that was my plan. Of course, he did not go back and forth with his king. That would be rather embarrassing. He went knight f8. He also wants to occupy some good square for his knight. Probably this one, the f4, because that will be an outpost for him, because the g pawn is missing and the e pawn will not be able to attack him on f4. But I have some positional advantage because I can take on f4 and play a position with a good knight versus a bad bishop, because this bishop is definitely a bad bishop. Look at this bishop. It's just like a big pawn, so not that impressive. So, but I realized that he wants to go here, and probably he could go here as well, not just f4. Not just f4, but d4 as well, because that will fork to my pawns. So here I thought for some time, deciding what I have to do, and then I realized that I can prevent his plans. I went here, continuing with my knight excursion. He went here, and I went c3, just restricting movement of his knight. Now he will no longer threaten this, so he can go here, of course, but then I'll just go knight c4 and threaten to take him. And if I trade this bishop for the knight, I will have an overwhelming strategic advantage, probably close to a strategically winning position. Maybe not strategically winning, but a big advantage. So he does not go here. Instead, he decides to opt for a different plan. He goes g6, which is a good idea, I think. He wants to push f5 in future. Probably put the rook behind the pawn or castle and then push f5. And if I go knight c4 here, then he can go f5 immediately. And I did not want to help him with his plan. So I decided, you know what? I'm not in a rush to go knight c4. I can make some waiting move to make him prepare f5 and spend time putting the rook here, for example. And only then I will leave with my knight. So that's some subtleties, high-level chess subtleties. Rook g1. Or maybe not that high level, because I'm not like a GM yet, but pretty high level. So rook g1 is a useful move. It's not attacking anything, but the rook is much better placed on g1 than back on h1. So potentially I'm, for example, controlling this square, the g5 square. In some variations, black wants to jump there with the knight. Black cannot do that now. Also, in some variations, the rook can join via g3 or g4 to help with the defense, flank defense. So the rook on g1 is a good rook, much better one than on h1. So that was a waiting move, and he still cannot go f5. He has to prepare. He castles. Now he can go f5. Well, actually, now he cannot go f5 because this pawn is pinned to the king, but now I no longer have useful waiting moves. I thought for some time maybe I could go like h4 and try to go for h5, but I thought he'll go h5 and my h4 pawn will be just a permanent weakness. He will somehow try to win it later and it will be too weak. So I decided, yes, it's as a rule of thumb, it's useful to push your weaknesses forward. If you have a weak pawn, there is such a rule, you should know it, that it's advisable very often to push it forward, but not in this position. It's much better placed on h2 because it cannot be attacked that easily. So instead I went, okay, knight c4. I don't have any other useful waiting moves. I'll go knight c4, because if I go king e2, for example, which is a useful move, but he will be able to check me and to win a tempo like this, because my bishop is not protecting f4. So I want to go king here and bishop here and rook here, but for that I need to put my knight on c4. Finally, I acquiesce to the fact that he can and probably will play f5. But first, he goes here. A very important move, by the way, because if he plays f5 immediately, I thought that it's possible initially, but then I realized it's not that easy, because I have bishop h6 developing with a tempo. And once he goes here, I have rook d1. And already I'm putting so much pressure, I'm I'm like faster than him in utilizing my plans, and it's not comfortable for him in this position. So he decided to prevent me from going with the bishop to h6, going king g7 in this position instead of f5. He went king g7. Now I developed the bishop to e3, also a good square. Now I want to go here and here, something like that. Maybe double on the d file and put pressure on the d6 square. This bishop will be vulnerable if he allows me to do all that. But of course, he goes on with his plan. He goes f5. Now I thought for some time in this position, spend some time. I really wanted to go long castles to like make the king a little bit safer. But I thought, no, it's not a good plan because he will be able to push on the f file and my pawns will be weak. Also, he has f4, what he did in the game, and my pieces are a little bit clumsy. This king will be better placed in the center than on c1, I thought. This is why I did not long castle. And king e2 I also didn't like because there could be some pressure on the e file potentially against my king. For example, knight f4 check, and if I take, he takes, and there's a problem on the e file. And I calculated some variations here and I didn't like them. So which is why I went rook d1, and it's the best move according to the engine. I found it, even though I spent too much time. Already getting closer to time trouble. So here my opponent played f4, continuing with his plan, and I retreated with the bishop to c1. And the difference with the line where I could have castled is the fact that this c1 square is free for the bishop, and the rook is free to press on the d file. So yes, my bishop is also stuck here, not doing anything particularly impressive, but I thought that I will develop it via a3 or b2 to put pressure on the opponent. You will see it shortly. So here he goes king f6, and I go rook d5, and this is a great square. For the rook, it's putting pressure via 3 routes, and the bishop cannot move because then the pawns, or at least this one, will be hanging, and c6 is impossible because I'll just take the bishop. So I just want to go king e2 and double on the d file and put pressure. He here goes knight g5, taking the pawn with check. I go king e2. Well, only move, but a very logical one. And now he reroutes with his knight to f7 to overprotect everything. And I thought that this is like a concession from his side, and this is a moral victory for me, because his knight is no longer putting pressure, is no longer jumping to some dangerous squares, is just staying here defensively positioned, and my knight is very dominant in this position, and I thought I have some advantage, and the engine agrees. Nothing too crazy, but plus 0.39 on high depth, so not that bad. So here I go b4. I decide to break with b4, which loses most of the advantage. Actually, now it's equal. I should have prepared this. I should have first gone knight a5 to prevent c6, to prevent him from kicking my rook. Knight on the rim is dim usually, but this is a good square for the knight. It's actually an outpost because there is no b pawn to kick it, and c6 square needs to be controlled. And then I should have gone b4, but instead I rushed it. I went b4, and now he has resources to equalize. He went c6, attacking my rook. Now this knight and rook are protecting the bishop, so I no longer can take it. I go back, and now if he takes like this, I thought that I have good chances. I thought that I will actually take back with the a pawn. That was my plan. And then go bishop a3, knight a5, c4, c5, rook d1, of course, maybe even before that. And I thought that I have a good position. The engine actually prefers c takes b4 to put the bishop here. I thought of this as well, but I thought that I don't have a concrete follow-up. Both moves are like not bad, but c takes b4 is a bit more precise. But he doesn't have to take, and he didn't take here. And he found the better move, bishop c7. He just sacrificed this pawn on c5. He decided that this will be bad for me, and I also decided that this will be bad for me and did not take. And I was correct not to do so, because his pawns, his doubled pawns, are not that valuable, and my doubled pawns will not also be valuable, and they will be weaknesses and liabilities. I will have, if I take, if I take on c5, I will create 3 pawn islands on this side of the board. Pawn islands are pawns that cannot be defended by other pawns. So 1, 2, 3. Now I have just 1 pawn island, which is much better than 3 in this case. So yeah, I don't want to spoil my pawn structure. Instead, I double on the d file. He takes and I take. And this is an approximately equal position, but here he starts to outplay me. After all, he's an IM and I'm close to time trouble here because I have to make like 15 moves within 17 minutes before time control, before I get an extra half an hour. Thankfully, it's not a complicated position with lots of like forcing variations, so I cannot like blunder too horribly here, but still I was in time pressure, as I usually am in this tournament. He goes king e6, protecting this infiltration square from my rook. Now I go a4, I push. I still try to play for some advantage. I thought that his kingside play is non-existent, even though he's stronger on the king side because I have weak pawns there. But I'm stronger on the queen side, so I decided I'll push. Maybe I'll go a5, maybe I'll go even a6 in future. Maybe I'll somehow infiltrate. I didn't know how. Maybe I'll go bishop a3 and b5. That was another plan. But he goes rook b8, putting pressure on my b pawn. I protect it. Again, I do not want to take his pawn because, yeah, he will infiltrate with the rook, and the engine says it's equal, but I do not want to allow that. I wanted to play for an advantage, and I went bishop a3, and he goes knight d6. He calculates for some time, and this is the best move. He finds the best move, and I was frustrated after this move because I didn't want to trade, and I thought that my knight is much better than his. But if I go back, he goes c4, and my rook is trapped. So I'll have to sack the rook for the knight and it will be a losing position. So I cannot go back to d2. If I go to a5, he'll just take and also have like a good position because my bishop will be worse than his knight. And if I go here, I do not really like this move, but the engine suggests this move as one of the moves. But also when it thinks for some time, the engine says that this is also fine, what I did. I took his knight reluctantly. And here I thought, okay, this should probably be a draw. He's an IM, a strong opponent. I should be fine with the draw, okay? I should not be too subjective. And I thought that I have to take this pawn here, and this is the only move according to the engine as well. So I have to spoil my pawn structure, but the difference is that I do it with a tempo. Now he has to waste a tempo to move the bishop back. And I'm temporarily up a pawn, but these pawns are ugly and probably, even if I don't lose them, they will not help me win the game. Like they nullify each other, those pawns on the c file and on the a file. But here I was like, what if he will start playing for a win in this position? Because it looks like he's already taken over. He can do this, for example, not very good. Okay, if he goes rook b1, I thought, okay, I have rook d1, and if we trade, it will be a draw. Rook b3 is another idea. I thought, okay, I have to be precise here. I thought maybe I should block the file, and actually the engine says this is the best move. But I didn't like the fact that he can go rook a8 and threaten a5, and if I go a5 here, then rook b8 back. This is what I calculated, and then rotate like this and put pressure on my weak pawns, and I did not like that. But this is all equal according to the engine. I saw some ghosts. I shouldn't have panicked. And here I decided, okay, I'll go c4 to control b3. And it's not a bad move, but this is the beginning of some trouble for me. So he goes h5, pushing the pawn, very useful move in any case. I go h3, also a useful move. In future, if he goes here, these pawns will control the g4 square, and he will not be able to create a passed pawn. Now he goes rook b7. He's controlling this infiltration square. Now all infiltration squares for my rook are controlled, and probably his plan is to march the king to my weak h3 pawn. And once my king goes here, I don't know what will happen. He will probably somehow infiltrate with the rook, put pressure, maybe on c2, attack my pawns. And I was panicking in this position because I have like not much time. 8 moves to make in 6 minutes, and he's taking over. And I panicked and I made the mistake, rook d1. And now he is much better. Instead, I should have gone rook d2 and just traded the rooks. I just completely neglected this possibility. And if he goes here, I go here. And if he goes here, I go here. And if he goes back, I go here. And if he goes, for example, king f6, then I go rook b2. And he will have to trade. And yes, I will lose the c5 pawn. And now we are back to the equal amount of pawns, but it's completely drawn. I just can wait with my bishop, and if he ever like defends this pawn and walks the king here, I will walk the king here, here, and it will be a draw. But I panicked and I neglected this opportunity. And in this position, instead of going for this plan, I went rook d1, and already black is close to winning. He goes king f6. Now I go rook d2. I continue waiting, and he goes rook b3, attacking my bishop. And now I can no longer go rook d3, because this will be a losing endgame, because I will not be in time to protect my pawn. One tempo too short. So I should have done this one move earlier. Right now I can no longer do this. So after rook b3, I have to drop back with the bishop. Now he very calmly goes king e6 before taking this pawn, because he will be able to take this pawn later, but he did not want to allow me the rook infiltration. So I continue waiting. I go rook c2. He takes my pawn. Now we are back to the equal number of pawns, but he's completely winning. But this is not over, guys. There will be an interesting episode later on that will change the tides, turn the tides of the game. So bishop c5, he's dominating. His rook is dominating. My rook is very sad. Yes, we have equal amount of pawns, but he will probably be able to win some material or go here and push his pawns and maybe drop back with the rook and assist the pawns with promotion, or put me in zugzwang. There are so many plans of winning this game for him. Unfortunately, I realized that he's winning, and I have like 30 seconds on the clock. Now I'm playing on increment. 30 seconds per move gets added to my clock until move 30 or 40. So I just make moves. I just pray here. I go bishop c3, preventing him from forking my pawns like this. But he goes rook a3 now, puts pressure on the pawns like this. So I have to go a5 not to lose the pawn. He goes rook b3. He's just also waiting for me to do something stupid, probably. I go rook c1. I'm also waiting. He goes a6, just controlling some counterplay potentially that I could have with this pawn. I go rook c2, I continue waiting. He goes rook a3. And this is move 40, and I go bishop e1. And now I get 30 minutes extra added to my clock. So I can breathe a little bit, go to the washroom, drink some tea, and think about life, contemplate my mistakes in this game, which I did. And I was like, okay, I'll still fight. I should fight, and I should show some fighting spirit. Maybe I can create some miracle. This was a good decision, guys. So he went bishop d4. I went c5. I calculated a lot of variations, and I decided that if I allow him to go here, for example, with the king, infiltrate, it will not be a good idea. So at least I'll block. I'll lock the queen side completely. He has no squares for his king to enter. So these pawns, if I don't lose them, they disallow the black king to come ever to the queen side. Also, they disallow the bishop to drop back and rotate, for example, to this side of the board. So the bishop is also stuck to only this diagonal. So I decided, okay, I'll do this. Still it's losing, of course. He goes rook b3. He decides to go for these weak pawns, but I have rook c4. And once he goes here, I go bishop b4. And this bishop is also a big pawn, but it's serving its purpose. All my pieces are holding hands together, like trying to stop the breach. But unfortunately, he has this zugzwang idea. He has king f6, and I realized with shock that if I go here, he'll go here. If I go here, he'll go here, and I'm in zugzwang. I have no moves. If my bishop moves here, he'll take this pawn. If my bishop moves anywhere like here, he'll take this pawn. So my bishop cannot move. My rook has to stay guarding the bishop. It cannot move. The king has to stay guarding both of those pawns. And if it moves anywhere, one of them will fall, and I will lose the game. So that's not good, of course. So king f1 is out of question. Now I thought, what else can I do? And actually, if I create some triangulation, it doesn't work because he always has an extra tempo with g5. So I decided, okay, I'll go h4. Yes, it's probably also losing. He will create a passed pawn, which he did. But at least I did not lose for nothing, this h pawn. Now here I went king f1. He went king h4. And I went king g2 because I don't want him to infiltrate with the king and then drop back with the rook and just promote this pawn after this series of moves. So I have to go king g2, disallowing him from infiltration. At least I'm like holding on for the time being. Now he drops back rook b8. And now I spend a lot of time. I spent almost all my time calculating here. I calculated some wild variations. I calculated that this doesn't work because he can just take, for example, and go rook b5, and this is a losing endgame. I also calculated some tricks. I calculated bishop b2, d2. I want to take here and then take here, which is a nice trap. But unfortunately, he has this. And if I take here, he'll take here with check, and I'm completely busted. But then I calculated some nice trap. Rook takes d4, sacrificing the rook. And then bishop takes. And if he pushes the pawn, I have bishop e5. And his rook is hanging. And if he's like, oh, my rook is hanging, I should move it, then this is a checkmate. Bishop f6 is a checkmate. The king is checkmated. Very beautiful, right? So in this position, bishop e5 is actually a fork. It's attacking the rook, and it's a checkmate threat. Checkmate in one. Bishop f6 is checkmate in one. But unfortunately, he doesn't have to take any action with the rook. He can just go king g5 and sacrifice the rook, and then d2. And the pawn promotes to queen. This is what I calculated. Very sad, very sad. I was disappointed. I thought, wow, I found such a clever resource, but it's not working, unfortunately. So sacrificing the rook here also doesn't work. So I calculated this and some other variations here. And if I just go like king f1, for example, he'll just go rook g8, for example, and then, or even king h3 is better, yes, and push his pawn, and I will lose. So if I go here, just wait, then this pawn will fall. So I have to do something, and I decided I go bishop e1, and I came up with one resource. I thought that I have only one resource to draw this game if I trade the rooks in this position, because I found a fortress, and my opponent fell for it. He went rook b2. I went rook b4, offering a trade of the rooks, and he took. And I was like, really? I took back? And yes, he will win this pawn. They have two pawn because of Zugzwang. I will have to give it up. But I calculated while spending this much time that it's a drawn endgame even if he wins the pawn. So this is what happens. We maneuver, maneuver, maneuver. Now I give up this f2 pawn because if I go here, for example, he can go here and it's winning for him. So I cannot allow the infiltration of the king. I cannot go back, but I can go here. And yes, you can take my pawn, but I'll just go here. And I'll stay just waiting. This is called a fortress in chess. And he goes back, I go forward. He goes here, I go here. And I just don't allow him any infiltration. And the pawn can march, but it cannot march that far. I'll take it on h3, and the king cannot assist the pawn. The king can go here. Yes, that's what he did, but then he offered me a draw, and I accepted because there is no way forward for him. And this was a miracle save. Did you like the game, guys? Write it in the comments.